Well, here we are. We're back again. Welcome to our podcast for all the free agents out there who are on the hunt for their next career chapter. In this great corporate restructure of 2023, there is an incredible amount of talent who have been given the gift to reassess and really consider where they want to invest their talent and for whom. So, our hope is that this platform will be just one avenue to match great talent with great opportunities and have some fun along the way. I'm your host, Tanya Pelletier, and today I am joined by Eric Rodriguez. So, welcome.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. So, let's jump right in. Eric, where are you based?
I am in Arizona. Even though I am a Houstonian from Texas, I've lived in other places around the world in Latin America, but I am proud to be in Arizona today.
Oh, perfect. Actually, the weather's not too bad here today, so it's really good.
Yep.
But I really, soon I know you're going to be based on planes, trains, automobiles, I'm sure, but we'll come back
Yeah.
to that.
So-
You're currently heading out of big tech and you're taking a full leap into what?
Yeah, I'm going to be taking a full leap into speakership business. So I will be a full-time speaker and consultant, working with organizations, with corporations, uh, basically around the country. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about my next chapter.
That is a very focused direction in next chapter. But I can honestly say that, even within the confines of corporate big tech, we worked together, for a couple of years, and you were never complacent. We talked a little bit about that, complacency in the corporate frame. How would you say that attitude has fueled you now as the opportunity arises to take that leap?
Yeah, thanks, Tony, for that. So my background is engineering, and specifically my background in engineering was automation engineering. So I was basically responsible for creating systems, programming systems that were, to a certain extent, disrupting work. And I've been doing that type of work for the last 15 years or so. And so I became very thoughtful about the impact that technology was having around us. And so that's what got me really passionate about being very intentional with the conversations about the role technology has to play. And so even though I was an engineer in this space, I was also making sure that I was communicating not only with people inside of corporate America, but also outside of corporate America, like in our communities and our education spaces, that hey, technology is not stopping. This world is moving really fast, and we need to be mindful of the role that we play in it. And so thanks to that spirit, I would say big tech gave me an opportunity to basically be on stage in multiple different ways, from speaking to as small as 5 to 10 people, to speaking to 100 of executives, to most recently speaking to thousands of educators. So I'm very, very fortunate that I've been given this gift to be on stage and be comfortable to be on stage to tell not only my story, but stories of so many others, and unique insights, but more importantly, help people find their space in this world that's really, really changing, that's changing very fast. And so I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to do that today.
Personally, that sounds terrifying to me. So, good for you that you found comfort in that space.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny when we were having kind of our pre-chat, we were talking a little bit about the risk of entrepreneurship. You want to tell us your story about that?
Yeah. So a few years ago, we had a few friends over here at the house, and we had a friend who's an entrepreneur. His wife is in the corporate space, and he was sharing with me his perspective of the difference between entrepreneurship and the corporate space. Around the context that also my wife, she's an entrepreneur. She has her own small business. She's had her own small business for the last 6 years here in Arizona, and so he was sharing with me. He says, Eric, you know what? Your wife is just so fortunate to have you because you have this steady job, and she could take this risk of being an entrepreneur because your family has, the steady income.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
looked at him and I told him, I said, you know what? I think it's the opposite. I think I'm the one that's taking the risk. And he looked at me just really surprised. He wasn't expecting that. And I told him, I said, because my job right now in corporate America depends on maybe a few hundred folks making a decision for this job to continue to be relevant in this market space for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And my wife, she could adjust, she could pivot, she could grow, she could expand her business to another customer set. She could digitize certain spaces of her business. She has a good spectrum of where she could take her business. And he looked at me like he never looked at
Yeah.
entrepreneurship that way. And now
Yeah.
that does not mean for folks that are listening to this call, leave corporate America and start entrepreneurship. But what that does mean is to be aware that that option has always been there and will always be there. And so when I was mindful that that option was always there, it gave me that comfort level inside of corporate America to take risks and to say, you know what, yeah, let me go and try this new stuff in this role inside of corporate America, inside of tech, inside of a new space. Because the downside is something just as exciting somewhere else, right? So,
Mhm.
so I encourage people that are going through these transitions today, be mindful of the spectrum of areas that you could go into, and also be mindful of the gifts that you could be giving into these spaces.
Yeah, very, very well said. And just always thinking ahead, I think is something you said too,
Yeah,
just wherever you are, right, in your journey. So
absolutely.
as you consider this next stage of your career, what is your mission and who is it geared towards?
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to be engaged in the education sector probably for the last 15 years in some form or fashion. And so right now to start, I will be engaging mostly with universities, with educators, with different organizations that are intersecting the education space. But also I've had opportunity to really be engaged in communities and the intersection that technology has in communities. And so my role, I would say, over the next several months as I launch this new space for myself, is going to be in the intersection of where technology is going, but the impact that it's making in communities and our next generation of leaders.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think it's fair to say that, you have been of that mindset to elevate people and grow people, prepare them for change, even while in a large corporate environment. So I think your new opportunity is to spread that mission so much further.
Yeah, Tanya, I've been fortunate enough that someone early on in my career created space for me, and I will never forget that. I remember the first couple of years inside of big tech, I couldn't find myself. I was trying to figure out, hey, what's next, or frankly, just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I was fortunate enough that people created that space for me to have these conversations and be thoughtful about, hey, how do I build tools into my toolbox in these areas? And I took that to heart. And I said, hey, you know what? Anyone that ever wants to have time with me, you know, and either inside of tech or outside of tech will always have time. I'll probably need to move the schedules around a few times, but I'll always make time for individuals. And now that I leave tech, I've had an opportunity to reflect back on those moments, on the impact that I've had in those individuals. Those have been the kindest notes that I have received over the last few weeks. Has been those individuals recalling that conversation that I had with them 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years ago, and just saying, "Hey, thank you, Eric, for that insight that you gave me because it gave me a new perspective on what I could do." And so I'm just being thoughtful that if I could do that for those individuals, um, while I was in tech, I'm very
Mhm.
excited to see who I could impact outside of this space as well.
Well, I have no doubts that you will bring that impact with you. And what is that famous quote? It's not what you say, but how you make people feel that
Yeah,
they'll remember, right? And that definitely embodies you. So,
yeah. Thank you.
yeah. So, what are some of the themes that you've been building into your speaking engagement so far?
Yeah. So most recently, I had opportunity to talk about how we're building a human-centered digital future. I think as technology is moving really fast, we're entering this. It seems like this new era of AI. Even though individuals like myself and many others have been in this space, we've been talking about disruption and automation and artificial intelligence for some time. But it seems that now it's become this cultural relevant term, and so how we feel comfortable with this world that's moving super fast. Um, but I've been focusing on how we put the human in the center. So even though the world is moving really fast, there's all these variables that are going around that are a lot of unknowns. We have an opportunity to focus on really what it's like to be human. As the world is becoming more automated and we're automating the more mundane and dangerous tasks, we have an opportunity to ask ourselves what it's like to be a human in the 21st century, what it's like to be a leader in the 21st century. And so I'm really excited to dive into that. So I've had opportunities to bring in some of those concepts for educators and for communities. This week, I'm traveling. Actually, tomorrow, I'm traveling to the Southeast to have some more conversations with some of the universities. And so I'm excited to dive into this space, especially in this new era that we're coming into as a society.
Perfect. And I think too, we talked a little bit about, mentorship, building your own journey, regardless of the environment, leaning into your gifts. That was a phrase you used, leaning into your gifts. I like that a lot.
Yeah, Tanya, I think that's the other thing that I've had opportunity to reflect on over the last several weeks as I've been learning into building into this space has been,
Mhm.
hey, what are some of the gifts that I have that I could be of service to others? And I firmly believe we all have gifts. And when you have an opportunity to kind of step back and reassess, like you're saying, not only this is a gift for you, but also step back and understand what are the gifts that you could give to others. And so I highly encourage people, if you're listening to this today, reassess your gifts too, because there's probably some gifts there that you haven't had opportunity to really maximize that potential. This might be an opportunity for you to do that.
Love that. So I usually end with asking if you have any advice or tips for the
Yeah.
audience as they're considering.
Yeah, what one unique time that we're having this conversation, we're entering earning season. And that's one
Mhm.
of the things too that as a lifelong learner, I like to call myself. I like to go into learning about different industries, different companies. So if you're interested in pursuing your next career into different spaces, take this opportunity for the next several weeks to dive into some of these calls, understand some of the headlines, the highlights, what the leaders are talking about, the financial implications and some of their investments that they're making. This is a great opportunity to do that and learn a little bit more about the spaces you're interested in joining.
Great advice. Well, I can't wait to start seeing your brand and your engagements grow. I know that you're off to a great start. I understand we can find you on your own website and, of course, through LinkedIn. Anything else you want to close with?
Yeah, again, Tanya, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for sharing your gift with all of us and creating this platform for us. But like you said, you could find me on my website, ericjrodriguez.com, and on LinkedIn as well. And looking forward to continuing the conversation there.
Perfect. Thank you for joining me today, Eric, and thank you all for tuning in for today's Free Agents podcast. We look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget, if you want to join the conversation, just send me a quick note through LinkedIn. If you want to help us get the word out, reshare this post wherever you are in your change journey. Keep your heads up. You can do this.